Welcome to the Show Me Podcast with your host, Geoff Livingston.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Show Me Podcast. How's it going? I'm so thrilled to be back with you on season 3, episode number 2. And I have a good friend of mine. Her name's Mel. Some of you may know her as Dakota. She's a fantastic photographer, studio owner, model, really just a photography entrepreneur. And we know each other through shooting and stuff like that. But we also happen to hang out on this app called Clubhouse, which I'm sure you've probably been at least hearing about. It's quite the buzz. And so what we thought we'd talk about is how we see it as valuable, at least from our sense of being users and photographers and business owners and that kind of thing. But before we do that, Mel, do you want to introduce yourself and say hi to everybody?
Hi, everyone. I'm Mel. My modeling name is Dakota, so that's why I have 2 different names. I started in the photography industry as a full-time model and kind of, I'm in my 30s and I wanted to start trying other things in the photo industry, but stay in the photo industry because I love this industry so much. So I started running photo workshops and I started shooting on the other side of the lens. So as a photographer, and it's been a wild and just kind of opportunistic ride that I have had a great time exploring. So that's, I live in the Frederick area. I run a studio there as well called Photo Mab, and I live half of the week with my 9-year-old son and my cat all the time. And that's
there you
me.
Go. And she's a pretty cool cat, so follow her online. So with that, let's talk about Clubhouse, right? Do you want to tell people what you think it is, and we'll move from there, or?
So maybe Geoff, maybe you can explain it a little bit better, but it's basically like interactive podcasts. Like it's, people come on this platform, you're able to join specific groups, and then through their specific rooms, you don't even need to join a group though to join Clubhouse. You just can pick a room and pick topics that interest you, and you're able to speak in real time with other people who are interested in these same things or potentially are experts in these things that you are very interested in.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. I liken it a lot to Zoom, right? You have Zoom without the video, and there's basically like a public Zoom marketplace, the Clubhouse, if you would, and you can find different topics based on whatever your interests are. And, we primarily hang out in the photography space, but I can't speak for you, but I have found value in other places as well. Like I did some corporate speaking. I was actually on a Hollywood thing today, just getting revved up for our podcast, just checking out like what all these Screen Guild actors are talking about. It's just really crazy. It gives you access to all sorts of conversations you really never would think of. Mm-hmm. And then it seems like there are all these different size rooms, right? Like there are these public rooms and private rooms, but the public rooms, like you can have like 4,000 people with Jamie Foxx. And then 15 of us just
I heard about
chatting,
that.
Right?
Yeah. And like Dead Mouse is on. He was on like all the time. I mean, I don't know. He just didn't sleep, but he was on for a while. I haven't seen him on in a while, but I showed my son. I'm like, look, even Dead Mouse is on here.
Right. It's pretty interesting. So you can be a lurker there, right? There are a lot of people that lurk and just listen, or you can participate. I got a big mouth. I guess you would have to have a big mouth to have a podcast. And so I tend to chew the what on there, but we do curse on this podcast. I'm just still in my work mode. We do chew the shit out there, but
so we're allowed to shout profanities in this podcast.
I dropped the F-bomb pretty heavy on the last one. Right. I'll just say that.
Good to know.
There you go. But why do you like it, and what's the value you're getting out of it?
So, I'm kind of in a transitional phase of my business. So to be able to, for me, I initially joined because I'm looking for marketing techniques and just ways to better understand business, so I can apply that to where I'm going, like as a photographer, as a studio owner. But what I actually found value in is just, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We're not really able to communicate with or meet new people outside of like, the grocery store or something. And even then, everyone's kind of paranoid of each other. So Clubhouse for me is a space where I can communicate with like-minded individuals who are struggling in the same way that I am and are in the same industry that I am. And there's like this solidarity, and I'm meeting all kinds of amazing people that I greatly admire, just to be able to pick their brain, and to have a platform where I can get advice is just incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I almost feel like it was the right year for Clubhouse to launch. I mean, like you would never think that a pandemic would be a fortunate thing to happen. But if you're a Clubhouse investor, you have to feel really good about the pandemic because it's really kind of right. We're bored out of our trees. So now all of a sudden this thing comes along and it's like, boom, now we can, as you said, communicate, network, talk with other people. We've been in our houses for so long. I will say, like, one of the things I'm getting out of it is the peer-to-peer interaction of the other photographers. And there are so many really high-quality photographers out there. There are people, like, when I look at some of this stuff on Instagram, and maybe it's a condition of me following a lot of friends and stuff, I'm not seeing the level of work that I maybe should be seeing. But now that I'm on Clubhouse, I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. And what it's done is it's kind of like lit a fire under me. Yes. I'm like, oh, I got to up my game. Like I got my new websites coming out next week. I'm like, I got to get this thing cleaned up. Right. I mean, like on and on and on and on. And so I feel like for me, it's been extraordinarily beneficial just to be around what I would call like A-level photographers.
Yeah. Yeah, I can totally see that. That's kind of been the same experience with me. Like, it's inspired me to focus more on my personal projects. It's inspired me to really, it's like lit a fire under my ass to like get things going with my business. And I think it's like it's not accountability. What is it? But it's just that community vibe, that community energy fueling you. So it's been great so far. It is very addicting. So I'm trying to like ration how much I'm on Clubhouse because it's instantly addicting.
Yes. I was really proud of myself. I was off of it for 48 hours while I studied for an exam. And I passed the PMP exam for my my day life, which was
congratulations.
Good. No, man, that thing's like going to the proctologist. Too much information, middle-aged guy. All right. So the peer-to-peer thing's really kind of cool, right? But the other thing that's a little bit interesting, and people are starting to talk about it a little bit, is this influencer world, right? Which we've seen on Instagram. We've seen it in the blogosphere. It basically people trying to platform themselves and make themselves into like these Uber influencers on Clubhouse, right? And I personally feel like it's super annoying. And by the way, if you hear a dog, that's my dog. Yeah. So,
yeah.
Pandemic life.
Yeah, right. Seriously. I half expect my cat to like kind of come up into my frame and be like, hey, what's going on? Like
I was on a Zoom call. My cat came up on the table, literally wiped its tail right across my face. Everybody was just like, yeah. Good times. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of influencer people like on Clubhouse. I think I quickly learned what to avoid on Clubhouse. And sometimes I'll still go into like the big influencer rooms. I tend to prefer smaller groups because I'm there for connection, right? Like if you're there to get marketing techniques or whatnot, then there are very large rooms perfect for you to lurk and listen. But it's been interesting seeing how the culture evolves in Clubhouse, even over these last, like, I think I've been on for maybe 3 weeks. I haven't been on super long. And I'm curious to see where it's going to evolve, what it's going to evolve into, especially once they allow Android users, which hasn't happened yet. So
that'll definitely blow it open.
Yes.
I agree with you. Like, I find my sweet spot for Clubhouse is usually a room about 15 to 35 people. You know, that's
Yes.
where I get a lot of value. There's enough voices in the room that it's not, it doesn't become, homogeneous and, or just single point of view where there are 8
Yeah.
people parroting each other.
Yeah.
And then when it gets too big, man, then it gets to be like SmackDown City or influencers looking
Yes.
good. It's not always true, but usually true so far for me. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there is already a celebrity culture being established in Clubhouse that I find very interesting. I mean, it's still a social media platform, so we're still going to
Right.
get there's still going to be pros and cons, but ultimately, I do like that it is more like authentic connection focused. It's more interactive, and I can actually like put down my phone and still listen and still interact with this app while I'm working or while I'm cleaning or while I'm cooking. So it provides a lot more interaction that the other platforms like on Facebook or et cetera, don't really offer me.
Right. Makes sense. So with that said, do you have a Clubhouse strategy?
Do I have a Clubhouse strategy?
That's such an influencer question.
Yeah, right.
Ooh,
Well,
do you have a strategy?
Piggybacking off of what you said, Geoff, yes. No, I mean,
Right. So I've been asked that 5 times in the past 2 weeks. So it's really marketing people are really circling on this thing. Like, how do I slice and dice it?
Well, I think it's a good idea because I think as people who are entrepreneurs, like time is money. So I don't blame people for trying to find a way to they're instantly trying to find a way to monetize it, to get their voice out there. I totally 100% get that. That's not my motivation with Clubhouse, but that's another thing I'm really curious to see because I've made good connections, but I haven't made financial connections off of Clubhouse yet. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, I mean, genuinely, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm already doing business with people I've met on Clubhouse. But that makes sense to me from a peer-to-peer networking standpoint, right? Like if I'm in a business environment with a bunch of people in the same business as me, sooner or later I'm going to start doing business with them. And
yes,
so I found a retoucher that I'm trying out.
Oh, great.
You and I do business together. I have other clients that are on there, which is interesting. So for me, though, I really do see it like a networking forum, like I would in the real world, where I would go and network. And I'm even a Clubhouse admin for one of the clubs, which, that punk club I started.
The one that you started,
Kelly.
I love that one so much.
I know. Well, the whole thing with that, though, I mean, because I have a social media background, it's like I learned with Twitter and Facebook that the platforming thing is an issue. So that group, I think its value is to offer counter programming and to randomly pop up when there's just too much saturated, like, and literally just offer a real conversation. I think for me, being a part of Clubhouse is to be of service to that community and my peers. Yeah. And if I can do that, I'm sure it's a karmic act. And I'm sure, if there's a benefit to be had, it'll be the relationships I build. And that was how social media worked well for me. When I used it as a platform, it didn't work well for me. And I still find that my attitude about that is I would rather have 500 quality relationships on Clubhouse than 5,000 followers, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, so basically it's a really good networking tool for you at the moment. That's about what I mean, I'm networking with a lot of great people, which I do find really beneficial. And who knows? I mean, it might yield something, it might not. But I think because I'm in such a transitional phase anyways with my business, I'm like, so I think once I can hone in like what business I'm trying to network from in Clubhouse, like, right now it's my events. I have my events Instagram up. So, and that's been going, maybe it'll yield something, maybe it won't. But I think right now I'm looking at Clubhouse as like, I hustle so hardcore on Instagram and Facebook. I need somewhere to kind of go and like decompress.
Female, right?
Yes, female, right? Not Dakota, right? Not Events of Dakota. Like, which I love, but
Yes.
it's a grind. You know, you're a freelance artist, so it's a grind. So
100%. Yeah. One of the things I wanted to talk about was as we move through our show notes. You know, one of the things I'm liking about it is that it's reset the photography conversation, right? There's the cat.
There's the cattail. Look at this. See?
All right. Just see. It knew. I shut the door so those little furry little rats can't get in here, man. They're going to get me for that later.
Oh,
So like what I mean though is like when you look at the online photography conversation on blogs and video, YouTube, it's all gear. It's like totally this sausage party guys, dudes like, well, if you don't have a 46 megapixel camera with a 1.2 lens, you're a loser. If you don't have a Sony, you're a loser. No offense, Sony. No offense. If you want to send me a camera, I'll look at it. But you know what I mean? It's like that douchey influencer kind of conversation where it's just like about gear. And photography is not about gear. Photography is about images, right?
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that?
It's funny because I've barely discussed gear this entire time, like that I've been on Clubhouse. I think I've had a brief discussion about like lighting equipment because I asked a very direct question, like I'm trying this lighting setup. What would you guys recommend for this lighting setup? But otherwise, like it's very much like art focused and community focused, which I really, really like because we can Google things to death in terms of gear and post on Facebook about gear and get like, 1 or 200 comments about people arguing about what's the best gear to use in this scenario. But Clubhouse definitely seems more community driven versus like gearheads.
Yeah, 100%. Like, and so it sounds like you're having the same conversations I am where we're talking about creativity or like last night when we were in that room, we were talking about what is art? You know, what does it mean to be an artist as a photographer? That kind of stuff.
Right. Exactly.
So the question is what happens when like Nikon and Canon and Fuji and Sony and all these brands come on there? Because I've already seen Adobe on there. Adobe's already evangelizing.
Oh, wait a minute. That's right. I did see a couple Adobe representatives.
Oh yeah.
They were just kind of lurking. Like, so one of the women who represented Adobe came up on stage.
Janet?
Was that what it was? She just like casually mentioned it.
She's sweet. Yeah. Very nice lady. Yeah.
But just like super casual. Like, so like Adobe.
And then they started a Photoshop club, right? They did.
They totally started. Wow. I didn't know that. Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
There's that.
I mean, it makes sense. Yeah. But they're coming, right?
Yeah.
So next thing you know, we'll have like the Frono's Photo Clubhouse. I love that guy. He's so funny. All right. Next topic. Okay. The other thing that I really have noticed, which is interesting too, and it gets back to that. I mean, that conversation's a very male conversation, right? Meaning like it's mostly guys, like Tony and Chelsea, not the other way around, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, the petapixels, it's all dudes. But the communities on Clubhouse, I would say it's 50-50, if not more leaning towards women. There are a lot of boudoir photographers that are women. There are a lot of wedding photographers that are women. A lot of newborn photographers are women. There are a ton of great female artists and photographers that are out there having conversations. There's a ton of models. The models are telling the photographers, we don't like this. I mean, it's a really strong conversation from that side. I'm not really one to say what that is, but I would be very curious what your perspective is.
So please don't quote me fully on this, but I do remember reading this is like deep in my memory banks, but reading something saying that women are more community driven than men are, just like statistically speaking. So it could be that there's more of a female presence on Clubhouse because it's more of a community driven app. It's very much community focused and building these connections. So I wonder if women are just more inherently drawn towards the structure of this app as opposed to other apps or whatnot. And maybe that's why we're seeing a stronger female presence in this one versus other apps. that's the only thing I've come up with in terms of like the why, just the statistical probability of women being more community oriented. But I appreciate it. I mean, it's really great. I don't really get to talk to a lot of female photographers, just because it's in my area. It seems like in person it's a very strong male presence. So it's nice to have that female perspective kind of included more so on this app.
Do you find it did it change your perspective on the industry at all in that sense? I mean, what's your general feel about participating in it? Tell me a little more. Like, get into a little bit. Like, is the conversation better because of it? I mean, or not, or is it just different?
I don't know if it's better. I do know, like, one of the groups that I go onto, it's like I go on in there every morning. It just seems to be more inclusive. Like, it seems to be more accommodating. And there are a very large amount of women in this group, in this room that I go into. So I find the rooms that are very female heavy to just be more inclusive and open to,
right.
Yeah, like they like people tend to not talk over each other as much, and like, oh man, I feel bad saying this though, because I don't want to like throw my male photographers under the bus or anything like that. Like,
I've noticed that too. Yeah. Now you're good. I mean, this is interesting, right? To me, it's like an interesting sociological experiment. So
yes,
keep it coming.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I have a whole lot more on that. I definitely stick to my rooms. Like yesterday was International Women's Day. And I just find like I went into a few rooms that were really wonderful. Just like everybody was listening and creating a space where everyone can talk. And it felt very warm, and it felt more authentic than other experiences I've had on platforms. And like the men that were participating in these rooms, I don't know, they just seemed, there wasn't any of like what you would call like mansplaining or anything like that. Like everyone was there just to learn off of each other, and there were no crazy egos. You can go in other rooms for sure and see that, especially in the larger groups. Like the person with the largest ego is probably going to dominate the conversation. I'm just opinionated as hell. So it's like when I go on these, I'm like, excuse me, I have something to say about that. So it's
right.
Like,
no, it's good. Yeah, no, I've seen some sword fests on there. It's interesting. And I've seen some mansplaining, usually the talking over. It's interesting to see the cultural difference. But usually when there's a strong group moderated by women, or at least that it's balanced in their moderation. I personally prefer the rooms that are balanced a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't like it when it's all dudes, and I don't like it when I'm like one of two dudes. But, like when it's in the middle, I really like it. I feel like it's respectful but interesting and all that. So we'll see where that goes. It's cool though. I'll tell you one thing. Here's a little. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I interrupted you. Please go ahead.
My daughter, Soleil, has been listening on a couple of them, particularly if I feel like it's not going to be like a crazy conversation. And she's 10. And one thing that's really interesting about it is she wanted to go shoot with me on Sunday. And so there was a little model meetup that happened. So she brought a film camera and she was shooting, right? And with a Nikon F3. So I sent off the film to develop it. Tonight we're going to sit down. She wants me to show her how to use Lightroom. So all of a sudden she's hearing all these ladies talk about photography instead of her dad.
Yeah.
And she's also like, oh, well, this is not just dad telling me I could do it. This is something that I really can do. I think she needed to hear other women talking about shooting to be willing to do it. And so it's interesting. We'll see if it takes, but she's very creative and artistic, so it wouldn't surprise me.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, so representation matters. I mean, this is a perfect example of why representation matters when you create a space for different genders, different races, et cetera, et cetera. These people feel included. and
100%.
then they're able to, okay, well, maybe I can explore this thing because these other lists of people are doing the same thing. One thing I've also noticed that is a very positive thing is there is a lot of racial diversity in this app as well.
100%.
A very large diversity of people, from all over the world too. So you're getting all kinds of perspectives, but I've gone into rooms where there was a significantly diverse population where, I was the minority in terms of race, and I love that. Like, I love that there are all kinds of people on this app representing themselves and being, boss as fuck, right? Like coming in with their amazing photography and inspiring me, and I'm sure inspiring others. So I really like that it's not just like one demographic of people, which sometimes like when I first started my events, I was getting predominantly one demographic. But as I grew my events and started including, again, representation matters. So I'm bringing in all different kinds of models, all different kinds of looks. And because of that, I started getting different clientele, which I feel really happy about because I want a diverse clientele. Like, I don't want just one kind of demographic, so anyways, that was just like a side note of something that I really appreciate.
Yeah, 100%. And a big international community too. I've got friends in Portugal and Slovenia and China and Korea and I don't know, not China. I think it was Korea. And then also Latin America and the Middle East. It's really, it's crazy. You're meeting all sorts of different photographers. It's cool. Okay, let's wrap on the Clubhouse. Do you have any last thoughts? And then we could talk about astrophotography really briefly.
Last thoughts about the app are, no, I actually don't really think that I do. I do love your group though, and I'm really curious to see what other topics you guys are going to come up with. Are you still going to be doing you do a weekly thing, right? What's the weekly thing you guys are you doing that through the punk photography group?
The project thing? I don't think I'm going to do it because it really dwindled out after a few weeks.
Got it.
So
okay.
I'm of the mind with that one to fail fast. But with the punk group, I was talking with Kelly about it last night, and I think what we're going to do is we're literally going to do it unannounced. We're not going to schedule. It's going to literally be like a rave, which just pops up, and it's going to be fast and furious. And then once we feel like the conversation is going to die or it is dying, we're going to end it. We're literally going to be like, hey, what's your favorite punk song? Or talk about something punk. And then we're going to end it. And we want it to be really kind of something that's random and cool and crazy and weird and fun.
I love it.
Rather than something that's personally branded or any other horseshit. We want it to be punk, Do
you feel kind of, when you start a room, do you feel a little bit weirder than if you joined a room as a moderator? You know what I'm saying? Because I feel when I create a room, I get nervous for some reason. But if I just come in as a co-host, I'm great.
Yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. But for me, I would say it's because I've done so much panel work in my previous life and speaking and organizing conferences and all that. And running social media communities, for me, it's an old hat.
Got it.
It's it's easy. And what's fun about it, though, is it's what we just talked about, right? It's not a community in the traditional sense. It's really just this random zeitgeist that lands on your feed.
Yeah.
So I have no idea when the next, punk rebel photographers meetup's going to be on Clubhouse, but you can pretty much guarantee it'll be some point when there's a lot of lame conversations happening.
You're going to be like, F this, we got to start a room about this.
That's pretty much what happens. Last night I was texting with somebody else, because there's always that Instagram back channel, right?
Yeah, right.
It was boring. I want to talk about art. And I wrote back, what the fuck is art anyway, right? And then that's how that happened.
That was a great room. I love it so much.
Right. Thank you. Cool. So astrophotography, you have a sold out workshop coming in June. I happen to be coming along as your sidekick.
Yes.
What made you decide to run an astrophotography workshop?
So I'm going to be full disclosure here. It's completely self-indulgent. Because like, okay, so like I look at landscape photography and I'm like, God, that's so beautiful. Like, but I have no inclination towards landscape photography for myself. Like, I have no desire to shoot it because I'm just like, I have no idea what to do. However, then you get to astrophotography and I'm like, okay, that represents like wild adventure to me. Like to do astrophotography is like to venture into like the great unknown and like do this, like staying up all night. And like, it sounded so incredible. And to see the stars, I mean, it was just the most beautiful thing I could think of. I'm like, okay, I don't like landscape photography for myself, but I want to do that. That's what I want to do because that looks amazing. And I needed to find a way to safely run an event because I run events for a living. And like with the pandemic, I'm very protective of people. I'm very protective of my clients. If somebody gets sick because of me, I would be devastated because, I mean, I got COVID back in March 2020 and it changed my whole life. It's a whole other topic. But so I know how devastating the virus could be. So the astrophotography
and we've talked about that.
Yeah.
You're not kidding. It was hard for you. I know that.
No, it's changed my entire life. It's devastating. But with the astrophotography, it was like, cool, I can create an event where we can socially distance. We're going to be outside and we can go on this photo adventure together and we can still have that sense of community and that sense of togetherness. And that's not redundant, but whatever. Like we can still create this beautiful weekend retreat and connect with others and create like badass photos, man. So I started it as like, I really want to do this. This sounds super fun. I don't know if it's going to sell because I've only done modeling workshops before. And who I selected, I selected you because I had been trying to find somebody, but nobody really fit. Like, everyone was either like 18 years. There's a lot of astrophotographers who are very young. I'm super surprised by that, but they're like 18 years old.
Peter Pan. Terrible. It's fucking horrible.
But then I saw your work and I was so enamored by your street photography that I just kind of like glazed over like all your other work because I like really admire your street photography. It's just so beautiful. So,
thank you.
You're welcome. But then I was like, oh, wait a minute. There's an astro photo in there. And I'm like, wait, there's another one. Oh my God, he's perfect. So it was like, I was like, God, please let him say yes.
And we sold out in like 4 days, right? We were like, boom. People were like, hell yeah.
We basically had all the spaces accounted for in 30 hours. However, it took to actually confirm payment from everyone. It took, I think, 3 or 4 days. Yeah. Which I was like,
that's pretty awesome.
But no one said anything the first day. And I was like, oh man, I don't think this is going to work. I was like, shit, Jeff's going to be mad at me if it doesn't work.
Are you kidding me? Come on, man.
I was freaking out. I'm like, I got to do a good job.
That's like one of those things where like people come up to me and ask me if I'll do this. And they say, hey, will you go shoot the Milky Way? We'll pay you this. I'm like, yeah, sounds great. And then I like hang up the phone. I'm like, yeah, of course I do that. I do it anyway, right? Yeah, so much fun. In fact, I think if I'm not exhausted tomorrow because I've been a little bit tired after that test, I'm going to go finally shoot that zodiacal glow as a practice session tomorrow. So lots of fun for me too.
Yay! Yeah. I'm so excited. Thank you again for coming on for the project. I'm super happy about it.
Looking forward to it. So look out for the photos, folks. So with that, Mel, thank you so much for coming on the Show Me podcast.
It's my first podcast. Right. Thank you for being my first podcast.
Oh, it'd be cool, man. It's coming out soon. So thank you. Thanks, everybody, for listening, too. Cheers.
Right. Ciao.
Thanks for listening to the Show Me podcast with Geoff Livingston. More shows, sponsorship, and donation information are available at showmepodcast.com. astrophotography.com.